Well, welcome back, Christian caregiver. Welcome to the podcast where I help Bible-believing Christians who are wanting to use their strengths and their talents to make dementia caregiving easy with the purpose of being able to still find hope as well as find help in making this caregiving journey easier for yourself. We are in a short little mini series where we are doing quick tips about some challenging behaviors. And today's episode is 5 quick tips for dementia caregivers about repetitive questions. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, one of the hardest things is repetitive questions. And I think it's because it is so, no pun intended, repetitive, right? I'll never forget with my mom, I made a big mistake with my mom when she started with these repetitive questions early on in our dementia caregiving journey. And partly, I believe people do repetitive questions because they don't remember that they have just asked the question a couple of seconds ago. But even more than that, I also sometimes think that people who are asking questions, it's because they have a need to actually know the information. They cannot hold on to the information like you and I are. And some of us need information in order for us to be able to function well, in order for us to be the person that we are. And so when my mom started with repetitive questioning, I always used to say things like, "But mom, don't you remember I already told you that?" Or, "But we just talked about that, mom." Or, anything related to the fact that I was showing her repetitively that she had just asked me the question. When my dad got super, super sick a couple of years ago, and he had the same thing, these repetitive questions, as he was confused from being in the hospital, I was a little bit more in tune to it. And I noticed when I used these strategies with my dad, he did not have the same response as what my mom did, which my mom started to become anxious. I believe that inadvertently, by not handling her repetitive questioning in a better way, by using these quick tips, I believe I actually created anxiety for my mom. So both my parents had repetitive questioning. I just handled my dad's repetitive questioning a little bit easier, a little bit better than I did with my mom. So 5 quick tips for managing or handling repetitive questions in dementia. Now, the very first one is you have to answer and respond with patience and reassurance. Don't necessarily answer all the time with facts, but try to figure out what the emotion behind it might be. Answer the question calmly every single time, cheerfully, even if it is the 110th time in 10 minutes that you're answering the question. Just use humor as much as you can if it's appropriate, and be upbeat and make like you have never heard the question before. It will go a long way to helping the person who you are helping not feel anxiety. Sometimes at the beginning process with a dementia caregiving journey, this is the second quick tip, use some visual aids or some written reminders like a calendar or a clock or a orientation clock that you can buy on Amazon or on in the dementia journey. You can use things like pictures of just an item or a word in key locations if the person is asking you, where are the XYZ? Sometimes some people you can use the word underwear or knives and forks, or later on you might be able to just use a picture. So that's quick tip number 2, especially if the questions are, where is my XYZ at the beginning? So the person could be asking because they cannot remember where they have put those things. The third quick tip is to use redirection strategies from the questioning to an activity that the person may be interested in using. A person might be asking repetitive questions because they're bored, because they don't feel like they're engaged, because they cannot remember what happened before, and so they're living in that moment. Now, we don't want to redirect a person abruptly, but if there's a gentle way for us to facilitate and redirect their attention to something that they may have enjoyed doing with you before, like a hobby or a task or looking at photos, that can be a strategy. Or you can ask a question and start a conversation about a different topic. Things like, asking them to tell you more about something, taking them to a picture and saying, well, what do you think might have happened in that painting? What do you think could have been the situation? So redirecting the person from an activity to a different task. A fourth quick tip that we have is you want to maybe consider, is there something going on with the person? If they're asking questions at a specific time of day, if it's always the same question, can you try to look at the situation and see if there is something behind the question and go for the emotional connection, not the why questions, but the emotional questions, the emotional responses behind what they're asking. Are they more anxious? Are they concerned about their well-being? Provide the person with assurance or reassurance about being safe. And if they're open to touch, you can give them a hug or a pat on the shoulder, whatever is appropriate for your specific relationship. But try to figure out if there is an underlying emotional reason why the person is asking these questions repetitively. And then lastly, quick tip number 5 is consider very much so that a person living with dementia really thrive when they have routine and structure. So if you can create a very stable routine, it can help to decrease their uncertainty, it can help to decrease their anxiety, and just really help you to connect with them better. And sometimes when a person is asking repetitive questions, if we give them too much lead time, it can actually cause them more anxiety. Now, what on earth do you mean by that, Lizette? So for some people, it may be appropriate if they become more anxious if you surprise them with, oh, we're going to the doctor in an hour, that you provide them the information earlier on. But for some people, if you say to them, we're going to the doctor tomorrow at 1 o'clock, that actually causes them anxiety. And so you kind of have to know and understand the person that you are helping, because I've seen both of those to be true in my clients that I'm coaching. Now, as a bonus tip, and this is something that I've just recently worked with a client on, her mom does a lot of repetitive statements or utterances. They're not necessarily questions, but what she is saying is actually very upsetting to my client. And we have tried other simple redirection techniques. Her mom loves to sing. Singing has been effective at times, but it's not always effective. Now, if you cannot use one of these other quick tips to answer the question because the question is, or the statement is upsetting to you, if we cannot change the person's behavior as a bonus quick tip, then we have to change how we respond. And so one of the strategies that we have been discussing for her to try as homework is to, her mom is safe. We know her mom is safe. It's not that we're wanting to ignore her mom. However, there are times when we are discussing or considering, using a way for her not to hear these upsetting utterances over and over and over again, because it's truly, truly affecting her well-being as the caregiver. So we've talked about noise canceling headphones. We've talked about putting earplugs in just for a period of time so that she doesn't have to hear these statements that her mom makes that are highly upsetting to her. So today you actually get a bonus strategy. So it's not really 5 tips, it's really quick tips. But remember, just briefly, to respond over and over and over again, like first time, every single time, using a good positive attitude will go a long way. Second one is to use visual aids and written reminders if they are still appropriate for the level of dementia that the person has that you are taking care of. The third way that we can help is by redirecting their attention to a different activity or singing or something else as opposed to the question. Point number 4 is to really look for the underlying emotions, try to find out if there is something going on with the person. I have a framework, it's called the Peace Framework, and there is a great episode, How to Find Peace in Dementia, a 5-step framework to understand and manage aggressive behaviors in dementia, that you can check out. The link will be in the show notes. And then lastly, the last quick tip is remember to establish routines and have a structure. People living with dementia do so well with a routine and a structure. And if you haven't left us a review yet on podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, please go ahead and leave us a written review. We do look at them. I try to pay attention to which episodes are downloaded and shared so that I can give you the content that you so vastly deserve to get from me. As I end all of my podcasts, may the Lord bless you and keep you. And yet again, if you haven't signed up for a free dementia care audit, I invite you to send me on Messenger or on Instagram just the word audit, and we will get you the link so that you can sign up and co-create an episode of this podcast. I promise you, you do not need to be identified. You do not need to come on camera if you don't want to. I just want to serve and make your dementia caregiving journey easy for you. So please take me up on this free offer and give us a review, share this episode with other people, and come back on Friday for another 5 quick tips for dementia caregivers about a different topic.